Hi everybody, welcome to Live Blogger. In this video, I'll show you how to create this floating button for your website. So here we can see we have this button, and when we click on the button, we have these options and we can go into any of these options. And you can add the link of any page over here and the visitor will be taken to that page. And when you click on this button once again, the menu disappears. This button is also draggable and we can drag this button to any position in our web page. Now by default, the button will be right here, but the user can easily drag it to any place they want. So this is what we're going to design in this video. Let's get started. Alright, so I have created this empty project called a Draggable button, and let's create some files. So we'll go over here to new file, and let's create a file called index.html. And let's create one more file for the CSS, so we'll just name it style.css, and we'll create one more file for the JavaScript, so I'll just type main.js. Alright, now let's start with the index.html file. Now I am using this code editor called Visual Studio Code. So in that you have this option where you can just type exclamation and press tab, and you will have this basic HTML5 code. Now let's go ahead and link our CSS file over here, so I'll just type link and press tab, and in the href I'll just type style.css, which is the name of our CSS file. Now let's start with the markup of our button. So let's create a division with a class of custom button container. So I'll just type custom button container. Now in this division we will have another division with the class of button. So this will be the actual button, and inside this division we'll just type plus, and let's save it and let's open this in our browser. So I have this extension called live server installed on VS Code. So I can just right click over here in the HTML and click on open with live server, and here we can see plus is being displayed. Now let's add the button options. So for that we'll create another division with the class of button options. So I'll just type button options, and in this we will have anchor tags for all the options that we had for the buttons. So let's create an anchor tag, and for now I'll just type hash over here. You can go ahead and add the link of your page over here, and here the first option was about, and then we had contact and testimonials. So I'll just duplicate this 2 more times, and let's type contact and testimonials. Alright, so that's basically it with the HTML. Now let's go to our CSS and start styling this button. So we have already linked our CSS over here, so let's go to style.css, and let's target the custom button container division. So I just type dot custom button container, and we will give it a height of 48 pixels and a width of 48 pixels, and let's set a background color of 023047, and let's give it a border radius of 50% so that we will have a round shape, and let's set the position to absolute, and we will set the position of the top to 48 pixels and right of 100 pixels. So by default our button will be in this position right here. For now let's just hide these menus over here so that we can style the button better. So I'll just type custom button container button options and display none. Right now when we hover over this button we want to have a cursor of pointer. So let's type cursor pointer, and now when we hover over this we have a different cursor. And now we have this plus displayed over here. We want it to be centered vertically and horizontally in the button. So let's set the display of flex for this button, and we'll type align items to the center and justify content to the center. And now the plus is right in the center of this button. Now let's go ahead and style this plus. So if you go back to our HTML, we can see that it has a division with the class of button. So let's target that. So I'll just type custom button container btn. First of all, let's set the color of the text to F1 FAEE, and let's set the font size to 36 pixels, and we will set the font weight to bold. Now we don't want this text to be selected, so if we try to drag over here we can see that the text can be selected. Now if you want to stop that from happening, you can go ahead and add a property called user select and set it to none. Now if you drag over here we can see that it is not being selected. Now let's style the button options. So I'll just remove this line of code from here, and let's set the position to absolute, and we will set it relative to this button container. So here we already have a position set to absolute. So whenever we set the position of any child element, it will be relative to the parent element. So here let's go ahead and set a left position of negative 380% and top value of negative 50%. Now we can see all these menus are one next to the other. So let's add a display of block for all these anchor tags so that each of the anchor tags take up their own space. So let's type custom button container, button options, A for the anchor tags, and let's set the display to block, and we'll set a padding of 8 pixels top and bottom and 32 pixels left and right, and we'll set a background color of 90E0EF, and let's remove the underlines. So I'll just type text decoration and we'll set it to none, and we'll also set the font weight to bold, and we will set the font family to Roboto and sans serif. Now let's set the font size to 15 pixels, and let's set the color of the text to 000814. Alright, that's it with the menus. I think we can move the menus a little bit to the right. So let's set the left position to maybe 350 pixels. Alright, that looks fine. Now when we hover over these anchor tags, we want to switch the colors. So we want the background color to be this dark color and the text color to be the light color. So let's type custom button container, button options, A:hover, and let's type background color of this dark color right here, and the color of the text to this light color. Now let's hover over this and we can see that the hover is working alright. Now we want to have a smooth transition between the hover effects. So let's type transition of all to 500 milliseconds. Now when we hover over this, we can see we have this smooth transition. I think we can also add a little bit of shadow to this button options. So here let's type box shadow, and we'll add some values over here: 0, 4 pixels, 8 pixels, RGBA 0, 0, 0 and 0.3, and I think that looks alright. Now let's add some helper classes so that when we add those classes, we will have this button visible on the screen, and when you remove that class, this button will be hidden. We can add and remove those classes using JavaScript. Now when you click on this button, we want to display these menu items, and when you click on it once again, we want them to disappear. So we will add a class called active to this button when you click on that. So let's go over here and let's type custom button container dot active. Now we need to make sure that you don't have any space between the active and this class over here, because we want to have both these classes in the division for these styles to work. Now when you have this active class on this custom button container, we want this button to rotate 45 degrees. So here we'll just type .btn. So when we have the active class on custom button container, the following styles will be applied to this btn class. So let's type transform and rotate z of 45 degrees. Now let's add this active class in our HTML and see how it looks. So let's go back to our HTML, and for the custom button container, let's type active over here, and here we can see when we add the active class, the button has rotated. Now when we have the active class for the custom button container, we want these menu items to be displayed. So they are being displayed correctly, but when we don't have the active class, we don't want them to be displayed. So let's go back to our style.css, and we will add some default properties for this button options. So here I'll just type transform translate x, and we will move it a little bit to the right. So I'll just type 50 pixels. So this is where the button options will be at the beginning, and when we add the active class, we will bring it to the original position, and we also want the opacity to be set to 0. And now if you hover over this area, we can see that we can still click on these links. So let's set pointer events to none. Now if you hover over this area, we cannot click on any of those links. So now let's add the styles for the active class. So let's type custom button container dot active, and we will type button options, and when we have the active class, we want the following styles to be added to the button options. So let's copy this code from here and paste it over here, and we will reset the value of translate x to 0, and we will set the opacity to 1 and the pointer events to auto. Now we can see that the options are being displayed, and let's go back to our index.html and let's remove the active class. And now we can see that the button is not being rotated and the options are not being displayed. And if we add the active class, we can see that the options are displayed and the button is rotated. Now we'll also have smooth transition between these two states. So let's go back to style.css, and for the button options, let's type transition of all to 500 milliseconds. And even for the button, we need to have a transition. So let's add it over here, transition of all to 500 milliseconds. Now let's go ahead and add the JavaScript to make this button actually work. Now we'll be using jQuery for this, so let's get the CDN of jQuery. So just search for jQuery CDN and you will get this link of cdnjs.com, and you can copy the jQuery CDN from here. So I'm just copying this jQuery min.js from here. So let's click on this button called copy script tag, and let's go back to our source code, and let's add the jQuery link over here. So let's go to the end of the division, and here we will paste the jQuery CDN. Now for the draggable functionality of our button, we'll be using something called jQuery UI. So let's search for jQuery UI over here, and here we have the link. So let's click on that. So here you can see it is a curated set of user interface interactions, effects, widgets and themes, and it is built on jQuery. So I'll just copy jQuery UI min.js, and let's click on copy, and let's paste it over here. Now let's add the JavaScript. So let's first of all link our main.js file here in the HTML. So I'll just type script :src, and here we'll just type main.js, and let's go to our main.js file, and here we'll just type $symbol, and in parentheses we will type the class name. So the class name here is custom button container. So let's type that over here, custom btn container. Now to make it draggable, you have to just type .draggable and open and close the parentheses over here. Now let's save it and go back to our page, and now let's see whether we can drag this button. So here we can see we can easily drag this button to wherever we want. Alright, now let's add the functionality where when we click on this button, we want to display this menu, and when you click on it again, we want it to disappear. So let's go back, and it is really simple using jQuery. So I'll just type $symbol, and in parentheses we will add the name of the class. So I'll just type custom btn container, and here you have to type .click because we want it to happen when we click on the button. Now in here we need to add a function. So I'll just type function, and in this function we will add and remove the class. Now here we need to reference this class name once more because we want to add the class. But in jQuery, if you want to reference this once more, you can just type $symbol, and in parentheses you can type this. So it will reference whatever we have over here. So let's type this .toggle class, and we will add the class active over here. Now what this is doing over here is that we are adding the event listener called click for this custom button container, and we are toggling the class active. So when you click on it once, it adds the active class, and when you click on it once again, it removes the active class. So let's go back to our index.html and let's remove the active class from here, and let's go back to our web page. So here we have our button. Let's click on this button, and we can see that these options are being displayed, and we can even drag this button, and when you click on this button once more, it goes back. So that's basically how you create a draggable button for your website. I will leave the link of the source code in the description of this video, so you can just copy and paste this for your website. In the next video, I'll show you how to add this to your Blogger and your WordPress websites. So that's basically it for this video. If you have any doubts, you can ask in the comments below. And if you like this video, please click on the like button and subscribe to this channel to get the latest video updates. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a nice day.